They should get rid of the little animation that moves him back after butt stomp. Boop boop, and he's just out of here. And he could be like immediately. What I recommend in part is countering not just with fast buttons, right? I don't think it's good to always, like Honda does. What you want to do, right, is like this, and you want to be like, all right, fast button. Well, it just doesn't. Most don't reach here. I don't know if anyone reaches here. Don't be afraid to do a strong one. Honda's doesn't reach, right? He has to do something that's bigger. This is a 6-frame button. He's at -2 after this. So if you want to harass, if you want to take control, you can do it with like anything up to a 7-frame button. You got time here, right? The fastest thing Honda can touch you with is this 6-frame button, and again, that's an 8-frame gap. -2 on Buttslam, 6-frame button. Oh, I think you should be very happy if the Honda player you're playing against wants to do EX headbutt. If he wants to do this, and it's -26, and you get to do a dash up into whatever your best punish is, into Oki. I think if you see that your Honda opponent wants to do EX headbutt, I think you should be happy. I think that's the kind of thing where he'll do a little bit of damage, right? I mean, this is not nothing, right? If it's point blank, it's 160. A little further, it's a little less, 130. If he wants to bet, you know, really between 1/4 and 1/2 of his life, depending on the opponent, hey, go for it. Without even true invincibility, without 1st-frame armor, 3-frame, I really think that's not something that you should be too concerned about. I think instead the better way to view that is it's a tell, and the Honda player is hurried and anxious and will not want to sit for things, right? And you can take advantage of all that stuff. I really think it should be the opposite. Although I understand this is easier said than done. I think that the way to view that is not as mental damage. It's as this is a tell. This is a bad decision by the Honda player. You know how in basketball, people sometimes take shots and they go in, but they were bad shots, right? You familiar with this concept? Like it's shots that people take where the percentage is just really low. There were better things to do. You should have passed it. You should have gone in, something like that. That's what an EX headbutt is. It's a low percentage shot that you probably shouldn't have taken. And sometimes it'll work, but in addition to it working that one time, the lesson of it is for the opponent, this player, this Honda player, is willing to make a bad decision. And while sometimes the ball will go in the hoop, most of the time it won't. And you then get to take control as the defender. The point is that it's a bad decision. And even though it will work sometimes, it's not a high percentage decision to be made. And the risk reward is pretty poor. That's the case with all EX DPs in this game. Except this one doesn't even have invulnerability, and it doesn't even have 1st-frame armor, so it's just not a good call. And for a character like Honda, who has such utility in his EX moves, this is so strong, right? This is his best command grab. When he wants to command grab, this is really important. If he finds a good hit confirm, much better to be able to do this than regular hands, because you get a much better combo afterward, or any combo at all if there's no V skill 2 up. So for him, meter's important. And if he's gonna bet it on something like this, I think you should be pretty happy about it, even if it works against you sometimes. I really think it should be viewed oppositely from mental damage. It is showing mental damage on Honda's side. So in general, here, I really recommend pressing whatever your equivalent of this button is. For her, I guess it'd be medium punch or even stand fierce. And while Lucia doesn't have great range on stuff, you know, if it's a far butt slam, then she's gonna not really be able to do anything here. But the same principle sort of applies for Honda, right? Like in order for him to do anything at far range, there it is. In order for him to attack afterward, he's gonna have to do slow stuff. Forward roundhouse, he's gonna have to do strong hands or fierce hands. These are slow options. Doesn't have anything else that's faster. So if you are Lucia, same thing applies to you, except for you have 2 frames of advantage. Oh, hey, thanks for the subscription, dirty old man. I'm getting the weirdest names in this chat. Meanwhile, I am absolutely pure and clean when it comes to the names that I use. As everybody knows, he can also buffer a button into headbutt to catch you whiffing. Yes, extremely important game that Honda plays. I would say his most important set of mix-ups is the space trap. Meaning that he very often puts himself at ranges where he goads you into trying to counter poke, and then he will whiff punish your intended taking of turn, right? So very common that, like, do I have it on button? Yeah, okay, so very common that he'll leave himself at a spot where, this is probably good. Yeah, so that's a 3-frame button, right, that he's beating here. He's not doing the jab hands first, right? Her jab is active and could hit before his, but he's whiff punishing is basically what it is. So his mix-ups are really about goading the opponent into pressing a button, and then he whiff punishes it, right? Just like you're talking about. Knowing that, and knowing that, for example, in this situation that I was doing, that's a +1 into a 7-frame. There's a 6-frame gap. Knowing that, as the Colleen here, in fact, what her response to the mix-up should be to do like stand strong or crouching strong or something. Something that is fast enough. Now, in that instance, if she does do that, and Honda instead decides to do like, well, I'm supposed to have done strong first, and then jab, that's 5 frames, and so that might trade. Maybe it will win, but that's what the mix-up is, right? So what I often see people do when I'm playing against them is they believe in hands too strongly. Hands are good, I won't downplay them. I think it's a good series of mix-ups. But each time Honda does something, he's basically trying to whiff punish you, right? That's like really the idea. And so if instead you present slower buttons will actually beat this trap because they can't be whiff punished. They're hitting at the same time as he's trying to whiff punish you, right, with his spacing trap. So, although it's counterintuitive, in order to beat Honda in some of these situations, you need to do a slower button. And that can make Honda think twice, especially if it's something like a roundhouse. Okay, so here's something that I try to get away with pretty often. I try to do things like this into another strong hands. It just worked, right? She blocked it. I try to get away with that, but that is +1 into 16 frames. There's so many frames of whatever you want. And so what the solution can be is to press a roundhouse, crush counter him, right? And if you do that, you will deal a lot of damage. Whereas, if Honda does strong hands, it's 110 damage. Again, I'm not gonna say this is a bad set of mix-ups. Hands are good, but I think it's important to know what the counters are. The counters are actually to be slower about things, take more time, take more frames, because he's trying to steal frames himself. Honda is a very unusual character. He depends on that mix-up. Some other characters use it. I think Birdie may be the classic example, right? Birdie does EX dashing head attack, whatever it's called, EX dash punch, something. And after that, he wants you to press a button because most characters aren't in range. And when you do press a button and you whiff, he will do stand strong into something else. Classic, been happening since season 1 or 2. And other characters have the same kind of idea. But for Honda, it's like integral to his game. And I think that catches many players off guard. And so if you haven't like game planned about how to deal with hands in that way, it can throw you off for sure. And I also think that there's like this weird level, right, where this happens to me frequently, okay? I'll play somebody for the first time, and in the first couple of games, they'll be hitting buttons, right, during hands. They'll do stuff, button, sweep after the hit. And it works. And I get hit, and I get crush countered. And then slowly, as we keep playing, they begin to sort of retreat into a shell, and they sort of begin to take hands more seriously, when in fact their original decision was right, it was right for the wrong reasons. Maybe they tried it just for ignorance, right? They just didn't know, like, sort of what does Honda even do here? I don't know, button, right? But you can make it work intentionally as well, and I think that's really important to be able to do so. Anyway, so what I was saying about levels is that as a Honda player, I noticed that when I play against people in different levels, their decisions for dealing with hands pressure are different. At lower levels of play, people will beat my weird hands timing because they are sort of more accustomed to a robotic time frame, right? You have a moment that you press a button, and it's the button that you press, and this is gonna happen, and you do it, and that works actually. That actually beats some of Honda's pressure. Later in levels, as you sort of rise up a little bit, you're playing a little bit stronger players, they are accustomed to many players having slightly more open game plans of taking a little bit more of a turn, right? Stealing frames in situations, responding to a -2 situation with like their own button, or if they're +1, maybe they'll try like a 10 frame fierce, right? Just trying to steal all these turns. And that also works, but it doesn't work as well versus Honda hands pressure, right? So it's funky, man. As I was sort of rising up through the online ranks, at least with Honda, and getting through like Platinum and Diamond and stuff, as I got higher, my hands pressure actually started to work more and more. So I'm like in Diamond or Master, I'm kind of floating between the two, and I'm just doing this. Oh, I'm just having fun. I'm just mashing, and it's just working. And people are like, whoa. And I'm sure there's going to be a higher level than that. I mean, I have played against people offline who are higher level than that. It's people who win tournaments, locally at least. And it doesn't work quite as well because they have the mix at that point of being able to do weird timing and also set timing. They have both down. And now, sort of when they play against the Honda player, if they've game planned for it, they know when to switch. They can go back and forth between the different timings that will actually beat what Honda wants to do. Very interesting video game, the way this thing works. I love the idea of spacing traps and timing traps, and although SF5 is not the only game that has that, of course, I think that the way it's expressed in this is actually really good. It's one of my favorite things about the game.